Hey folks, Basil here. You're about to listen to an interview with Marianne Miller, star of Song and Stage, but mostly anime as far as you know. Anyways, this is a really good interview, but there's some trigger warnings, like all the warnings. All of them. They go to some dark places, and it's a really good interview, but it can get dark. So just to warn you about all the things, just all of them.
Hello, we are here at Hamacon 9. Happy to be joined by Marianne Miller. Marianne, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. What have you been working on that you're able to talk about?
Well, most recently, last year I spent May to December writing the remastered scripts for Gundam Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny. I wrote about 40 out of 100 episodes. I'm trying to think, what have I been in? Crap, I don't know. I mean, the thing that I can talk about that I'm most excited about right now is I'm in the 3rd season of Furikuri, which is going to start airing in August. So I'm really hyped about that. And season 2 is airing right now.
Let me ask, what made you first take an interest in acting?
When I was about 10 years old, I think is when we started getting a Blu-ray player and stuff like that. So I watched one of my first DVDs. Sorry, not Blu-ray.
I was about to say, how old am I?
I'm actually Benjamin Button. But yes, no, DVD player, sorry. And one of the first DVDs I watched was Patch Adams. That's what it was. And so, as a kid, I was like, I don't know if I could ever be an actor. But then one of the behind-the-scenes footage showed Robin Williams, messing around. There's a part where he swims in a pool of spaghetti with this old lady because it was her dying wish. She was like, I always wanted to swim in a bunch of noodles. So he does that for her. And I was like, oh crap, I could get paid to swim in a pool of spaghetti? I'm doing it. So that is why I decided to be an actor. And I tried pursuing it for a long time, but I kind of shed my mother's skin. She's 6'3" and I'm 6 foot, so I've always been this huge. I've never looked my age, and as an actor, that's not an advantage, especially when you're a teenager and you look weird and we all look weird as teenagers. But yeah, so when I got to be about 16, that's when I started learning that voiceover was something. And I was like, oh well, I can voice act that I'm in a pool of spaghetti with an old woman. So. Well, hi, Mom. That's my career choice.
Yeah, let's not give up on that dream. Maybe someday you'll be in that pool of spaghetti.
Indeed.
It's a really specific goal.
Yeah. I mean, I've already knocked off. I can date myself. I can. I got paid to say the word poop a lot. So spaghetti. That's really all that's left, and then I'm out. Peace.
Going out on top.
Who would you say has had the biggest impact on your career?
Well, Liam O'Brien definitely has had the biggest impact on my career just because when I was 16, he was one of the first people I emailed that was I really loved you, and I think it was Descendants of Darkness I watched him in. It was this terrible show. I don't even know what it's about. It's one of those shows where it's got pretty boys and you don't really know what it's about, but they're all angsting and it seems like it's really cool, when you're 15 and everybody's sad about something. But yeah, so but Liam O'Brien was it was also a yaoi bait show. So I emailed Liam O'Brien and was like, that was great. How do you do that? And he basically kind of he listened to my first demo and was like, that sucked. And, not literally, but he kind of walked me through the process of becoming a voice actor in real time. And I appreciate him humoring me when I was so young. It was very nice of him.
That's excellent. What has been the most challenging thing for you as you've developed as an actor?
I think the most challenging thing for me is, well, first of all, remembering that your ego is outside of the project. So, like, if a director tells you something that you personally don't think that something that wouldn't necessarily be a good choice for the seed that you're making or the line that you're reading or whatever, you just kind of have to, like, go along with what he says as the final word. You can make your suggestions and stuff, but you can't change his mind because, or I don't want to say his, there are female directors, you can't change their mind. But yeah, like, you can, so it is kind of a collaborative effort, but sometimes switching from something that's really, really collaborative and experimental to something that's more of an assembly line process can be a little bit more difficult, because obviously as an artist we all want to be proud of our work, but a lot of times we might not find ourselves in the best position just because, you know, with entertainment, a lot of it is get it done as quickly as possible. So, and also, like, coming to terms with, I guess, my own femininity and how it differs from traditional femininity, and how that is expressed in female characters as well. Because, like, I mean, I would love to say no two female characters are the same, but the fact remains that men outnumber women at a 3-to-1 ratio in entertainment generally. I mean, obviously there are exceptions like harem animes or something like Bubblegum Crisis or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
Anime has a lot more women in it, which I appreciate. Of course, we could get into, like, the differing presentations of those women,
some of the problematic.
the tropes are much more present.
Yes.
But at least they have more tropes. Whereas over here in America, it's very much like the 3 dudes and their 1 girl for who is a friend. Well, just a friend, though, until one of them becomes attracted to her, and then, of course, they're going to date. But it's very frustrating because I'm much more of a masculine, tomboyish personality with a deeper voice, and I frequently don't get... you know, a lot of female characters just because there aren't a whole lot of female characters written for someone like me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously as an actor, I can do a lot of different stuff, but I can't be a really happy-go-lucky 14-year-old girl anymore. I just can't.
Right. What are some of your interests outside of acting?
Well, I've started trying to play ukulele poorly.
Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, I was really into singing for a long time, and then I super burned out. I started pursuing opera, and I dropped out of that when they started charging for auditions. Yeah, it's a very elitist community. And like, I just didn't have the money to pursue it, and I had a lot of high expectations, and I entered into the game at 25, 26, which you're supposed to apparently already have like 3 degrees and know every aria on the planet and have coached with a bunch of $1 million coaches and everything. So I had the instrument, but not the resources. So that's why I wanted to try connecting to music in a much more simple way without the expectations there. So just practicing the ukulele has been a nice way to physically express musicality without needing to worry about my own anxieties or my own, like, does this sound good? It doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I also really like video games. Right now I'm playing this really cool, like, it's a text adventure game called Subsurface Circular, and it's about a robot colony living underground, and the humans live above Earth. And the robots all have different levels of consciousness and programming. So hearing these robots interact with each other, and you have direct conversations that are simulated via text message on the screen. So hearing these robots discuss the differences in their experiences in reality is really cool, because some robots are programmed to understand aesthetics, and some robots are programmed to have human-like thinking patterns. So clearly, like, intuition, something like that, would be completely unimaginable to a robot that was just designed to put tab A into slot B.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm into.
That's really cool. I kind of want to get into this, but I'm trying to think of the best entryway, because I know that just from things that you posted publicly, you and I share some of the same passion for advocacy for mental illness and things of that nature. Where would you say that you're at in terms of being able to help others with by speaking about your own experiences?
Well, I don't know. Like, I always feel like my involvement in anything is much more downgraded than it might actually be. Because, I mean, like, I don't know. I just have the automatic assumption that nobody cares about me, and if they do care about me, it's a nice surprise. And then it goes, like, if nobody likes me, and then they do like me, it's a nice surprise. So I guess I'm constantly being surprised. But I forget how important it is to that people just don't talk about things like mental illness or, you know, things that we think of as being part of our everyday lives. We just don't understand how many other people have the same experience as we do. So I think that I've come more to terms with the fact that if I even just say anything like mundane, people will it might resonate with people, and it helps people. And I've become more and more aware of that as my husband, he makes a vlog series called We're Still Here, where he discusses his struggles with depression, because he was diagnosed first, because he was suffering with suicidal ideology and stuff. So for several years, he was, you know, doing this video series to kind of cope with his own struggle with mental illness. And throughout that whole process, people would come up to him and tell him, like, wow, it helps so much to hear, like, these things being said aloud. And, you know, I did a couple of videos as well, because I was raped in 2009, and I've also been diagnosed with depression in the meantime, and, you know, no suicidal ideologies for me, thankfully. But yes, like, just being open about it has allowed so many more people to come up to us and connect to us. And, you know, you really don't realize that the conversation doesn't start until somebody starts it.
Right.
It's not something that just spontaneously happens. So it's been very eye-opening to see, like, how important the idea of community is to people with mental illness, because they feel so isolated all the time. But I'm also writing a book that I'm hoping I can get published sometime in the next year. That is also about during the whole situation where I was trying to deal with my husband's suicidal ideations. I wasn't sure if I was gonna, you know, come home and find a dead body in my apartment any day. So and that was for about 2 years solid. So that kind of has a really strong effect on somebody. And so after the danger had passed, and I still kind of found myself reacting with these really strong, like, instinctual, knee-jerk reactions to words that he would say that I wouldn't know the meaning of. Like, the word miserable can mean very different things to a mentally well person and a mentally unwell person. And I was interpreting, he was mentally well and saying he was miserable, but I was interpreting it as a mentally unwell person saying they were miserable, which could mean they could, you know, take their own life. So, I took this novel writing class because we always, like, there's that one thing you want to do. And for me, it was like, I always kind of want to write a book. So I wrote a book, and I had no ideas. So I wrote about a woman whose husband killed himself and her dealing with it. And, it's not quite autobiographical. Details have been changed, obviously, but it's basically everything about my own personal experience, about recognizing that my symptoms of depression weren't the same as his. I'm much more angry than he is, and he's much more withdrawn. So realizing that the typical symptoms of depression, or what depression typically looks like to the layman, depression has so many different shades. So I'm really hoping that when I get my book published, maybe that will also allow more people to recognize the symptoms in themselves and get the help that they need in order to, you know, feel better.
Something that you kind of talked about earlier sort of resonated with me. When you do decide, like, yes, this conversation needs to start and somebody needs to start it, you know, that, at least in my experience, and I imagine a number of other people's, starts with you just saying, hey, you know, this is what happened. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I think needs to happen as far as, you know, what we're doing in terms of mental illness and that sort of thing. And it can be very daunting. Again, just from my own experience of not only are you putting yourself out there in a very raw and personal way, it's also that sort of feeling of what you were talking about earlier. Nobody cares what you have to say, and if they do, it's a nice surprise. What has your own experience been like, and how are you able to sort of keep yourself mentally fortified to be able to keep having that discussion even if you're not getting the kind of engagement you would like?
Well, I think the most important thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing any kind of advocacy is that rest is not a bad thing. I've been very quiet about a lot of advocacy things in the last couple of years because I wasn't mentally in a place where I could do those sorts of things. Like, after Trump was elected, I hate to get political, but after Trump was elected, it affected me very strongly because, there's a lot of fear. There's somebody who has no political experience entering office, and that's never really a good thing. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not great for California.
No.
But also, he's such an unhinged personality, and that brings with it a lot of danger. But not only that, it also he represents a very reprehensible part of America, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about the people who voted for him. I'm talking about the people who he refused to condemn in Charlottesville, and with the fact that he was endorsed by David Duke and all that stuff. It's just
very, very fine people on both sides,
of course. And that really it shook me to the core because I thought I had this understanding of what the truth was, and then the truth was not what I was expecting. So when everything suddenly becomes a lie. And you're like, well, I have to try and rebuild this understanding of the world around me with this new world where Trump is president, and I have to try and support this president, and blah, blah, blah. And as time has passed, I've been like, no, my understanding of the world is correct, was correct. Maybe not as correct as I thought. I've made adjustments, but I've been very quiet, and that did obviously had an effect on me. I'm not going to say it was debilitating or anything. Because obviously it was triggered by a lot of other things in real life. When you have fits, it's never just one thing.
Right.
But rest is very, very important. That's what I was trying to say. Rest is really important, but also having faith and understanding that your life experiences are true and factual, and trying to be as true and factual in your recollections of them as you can be, because the more detail you give, the more people question. There are certain details about my rape that I've never talked to about anyone aside from in a closed door with in the psychologist's office, just because it's nobody's business to know the finer details. All they need to know is this happened and the emotional fallout and the process that you went through to try and repair that emotional fallout. But knowing the facts of your own life, I think, really helps solidify yourself against any sort of attack. Because obviously, anytime when I posted that video detailing my rape, we had to shut off the comments because so many people were just overwhelming the comments with telling me that I deserved it or that I was lying. I'm too ugly. There's no way anyone could rape me, which clearly has nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter. Anyway. Every time I talk about it, people try and doubt me. And thankfully, it's not quite been the same with depression. Depression is obviously much more affected by, or everyone is much more affected by depression than they are by rape. But yeah, just know that you're telling the truth. That's all I can say. Rest and know that you're telling the truth.
What are some of the groups that you would strongly encourage people to go check out?
Well, a lot of times, especially if I'm pointing people in the direction of help, because every year I'll post, actually I don't want to call it a rape anniversary because that sounds weird, but the anniversary of what happened, was last week. And, I always make a post every year saying this is what happened. And if you want to talk to me, I'm always open. My email's up on my website, which is on my Twitter. But yeah, so I always encourage people to go to RAIN if they want to donate. RAIN has counselors all the time available online and on the phone for people to talk to if they need to, and that can get them hooked up with free counseling and resources that people in need. Also, given, especially since we're still kind of like reeling from this whole child separation at the border issue, I really strongly encourage people to donate to Race Texas, I think it is, RAICE Texas, and also, I think it's Texas, and also the ACLU. I have running donations to there and as well to RAIN. Yeah, every month.
Marianne, it's been wonderful being able to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
遠い日の散らばった夢は星になって頭上に立ったなくしたと